Hey guys, this is Illusion PODFIC, and today we're going to be reading This Kind of Weather by R_Astra. This is Chapter 5. Jason spends all of Sunday morning trying to convince himself he's not insane, periodically ducking into a bathroom to look in the mirror. It's probably not a big deal, but it's weird. And sometime after lunch, he makes the mistake of wondering if it could be a sign that he's got some terrible terminal illness, which of course means he spends the rest of the day trying to convince himself that he is insane, and it's probably just genetic. After a night of too much staring at the ceiling in the dark and not enough sleep, he's had enough. "Hey," Jason says at breakfast the next morning, "do you dye your hair?" Bruce blinks at him, blank-faced. "No?" Great. He's probably got cancer or something then. He takes a sip of tea, trying to stop feeling like the fact that he feels like he's dying means he's actually dying. It doesn't. He just feels like that sometimes. He knows that. Is everything alright? Yeah, is what he meant to say. What he actually says is, "I think I'm sick. Shit. Fuck. He didn't mean to say that." Bruce leans a few inches closer, a concerned-looking crease appearing between his eyebrows. "Not sick, like, sick," Jason says. "It's nothing, don't worry about it." "Jay," Bruce says, and God, it's not fair that his voice can do that. Can make Jason feel all soft and warm and cared about, like he's fucking 5 years old again. What's wrong? Jason worries at his lip for a second, then says, "I think I'm going gray. I noticed the other night, and I thought maybe it was genetic. But if it's not..." Bruce's frown deepens a touch. Then he circles around the table and pulls the chair next to Jason out, spinning at 90 degrees. "Can I see?" Jason says, but turns in his chair and pulls his bangs back to show the roots. Bruce's hand reaches out slowly to hold the hair back himself, gently adjusting the angle of Jason's head so the light hits it better. When his thumb brushes over the hairline, Jason's surprised at how calloused it feels. "Has your skin always been discolored here?" "Not that I've ever noticed." Discolored how?" "There's a light patch right around where you notice the lighter roots," Bruce says. "Have you noticed that anywhere else?" Jason shakes his head minutely. "Haven't gone looking, though." Leaning back a little, Bruce releases Jason's head and reaches for his hands, turning them over in his own. Sure enough, there are a few blotchy white spots, small enough Jason would have assumed they were just old burns, scars, or something. Except that he doesn't remember them being there before. Bruce leans back in his chair and pulls out his phone. "What are you doing?" "Making you a dermatologist appointment." "What?" "Hold on," he says, putting the phone to his ear. "How fast can you find me a dermatologist that specializes in pigment loss?" There's a pause, then he says, "Yes, good morning it is to you too." Another pause. "No, I didn't realize what time it is. Sorry." "Who the fuck are you talking to?" Bruce holds his free hand over the microphone. "Personal assistant." Jason stares at him. "Since when do you have a personal assistant?" "Why do you have a personal assistant?" "To assist me, personally." Into the phone he says, "Are you awake yet? Good. The appointment's for Jason, this morning if you can." "This morning?" "Bruce, I can't. I have school." "It's alright, I'll call the office." "No," Jason says with a hard shake of his head. His chest feels tight again. "I have an algebra quiz on Wednesday." 10 a.m.? Bruce is saying into the phone. Jason presses the heel of his hand against his sternum. His heart pounds heavily against it, like it's trying to get out. "I'm not missing school," Jason says tightly. "Perfect. Text me the..." "Listen to me, you fucking asshole," Jason yells. Bruce stares at him for a second wide-eyed, then says, "Mickey, I'll call you back." He hangs up the phone. "I'm not missing school," Jason says firmly, despite the fact that his mouth is bone dry and blood is pounding in his ears so hard he can barely hear anything else. "You can't make me." Bruce shifts, and Jason throws himself back, scrambling to his feet. He's only blind panicked for a second, but by the time his vision clears, Bruce's expression has already shifted from whatever it was before to heartbroken. "Jason," he says, quite devastated. "Jason, I'm not upset with you." Jason swallows, shrugs, tries to relax. Then Bruce moves to stand up, and Jason takes a quick step to the side to put a chair between them before he can even think about it. Bruce freezes, then slowly and carefully he sits back down. "I'm not upset," he says, holding both his hands where Jason can see them. "I'm not angry with you, Jason." Jason makes a disbelieving noise in his throat. "Why not?" This seems to catch Bruce off guard. "I screamed in your face," Jason says. "I called you. You should be mad. You should be fucking pissed." "Jason, I'm not." "Why aren't you fucking mad?" Jason says, and suddenly he's angry. He's burning with it. "It's alright, Jason, Get up," Jason snaps, walking closer. Bruce just stares at him. Get up! He stands, and Jason's immediately in his face. Do it, he says. Tired of waiting. Tired of this stupid game. Tired of hoping when it never did anyone any fucking good. Just do it! Jason, I don't. Jason shoves him. Jason, fuck you! Jason yells. He pushes him again. Jason, stop. Make me. Jason snarls. I fucking dare you. Do it. Do it. I'm ready. Bruce looks like he's about to cry. Jason shoves him again, hard enough to make him stumble back a step. Fucking hit me already. Come on, old man. You know you want to. Just do it. Just fucking... No, Bruce says, voice hard. Jason stares at him, chest heaving. Why not? He demands. Why fucking not? You... Because you're my son, Bruce says, and I love you, and I could never, ever be angry enough to lay a hand on you, no matter what you did. Jason shakes his head. You don't mean that. I do. You don't. Jason snaps. You can't. I do, and I can. I'll swear out on anything you want. Jason's eyes start to burn traitorously. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. I'm not a good son, Jason says harshly. I'm not like Tim or Dick. I'm a mess. What was it his dad always said? I've got a special talent for pissing people off. I can't help it. I'm going to fuck up and fuck up and fuck up, and eventually you're going to get sick of me. Everyone does. Jason, that's not true. Jason shakes his head, lips pressed tightly together. It's not true, Bruce repeats, voice firm, unyielding. It is, Jason manages. It is. It's not, Bruce says. I don't care if you're a mess, Jason. Hell, you deserve to be a mess. I don't care how many times you fuck up. I don't care if you scream in my face and call me every terrible name you can think of. I will still love you, and I will never hit you. Jason doesn't say anything. It's alright if you don't believe me, Bruce says after a long, silent moment. I wish I knew how to make you understand that He shakes his head. But it's okay. These things take time. And if you need to scream at me every once in a while to check that's okay too. Jason stares at him. You want me to yell at you? Bruce shrugs. If it makes you feel safer, sure. What the fuck? What the fuck? Okay, Jason says quietly, a little lightheaded as the adrenaline fades away. Okay, Bruce repeats. Are you alright? Jason nods, swallowing hard. Of course, he says, but it comes out kind of wobbly. He clears his throat and tries again. Of course, I'm good. Okay, Bruce says. I'm sorry for not listening earlier. Do you want a hug? It's something about his face when he says it. Jason thinks. That awkward, sort of earnest, how obvious it is that asking is making him die inside a little, but he's doing it anyway. Regardless, the result is that Jason, who's an old hand at suppressing unwanted tears, suddenly can't speak around the lump in his throat. He blinks rapidly, trying to will away the heat behind his eyes, but it doesn't work. Bruce holds his arms out slightly, and Jason finds himself stepping forward without conscious thought. Bruce's arms wrap around him just like they did at the funeral, and Jason buries his face in the shoulder of his sweater, shaking a little from how hard it's become to hold back his tears. It's fucking stupid. There's nothing even to cry over. Bruce didn't hit him, he didn't do anything, and it's fucking... Shh, Bruce murmurs, hand curled around the nape of Jason's neck, thumb brushing lightly over the thin skin behind Jason's ears. It's alright, J-Lad, let it out. And Jason fucking weeps. Bruce holds him through it, giving reassurances in a soft, quiet voice every once in a while, that Jason's gonna be okay, that he's not mad, that he loves him. Jesus, he's not even... I'm okay. Jason manages between heaved breaths, voice hoarse. Fucking stupid, don't even know why I'm crying. Bruce hums and starts talking about endorphins and adrenaline crashes and stress hormones, all in that low, soothing voice. Finally, the tears stop, and Jason takes one last deep breath before pulling away. Shit, he says hoarsely. Gonna be late for school. Bruce hesitates, and for a second Jason thinks he's gonna try to get him to not go to school again. Not if we hurry, he says instead, and scoops Jason's school bag up off the floor. Do you need anything else? Jason shakes his head. Okay, let's go then. Bruce heads towards the garage, then ducks into a bathroom quickly, emerges with a wet washcloth for Jason's face, then starts towards the garage again. They take the roadster on a route into the city Jason had never taken before. All back roads with wide open stretches that Bruce absolutely flies down. You've been holding out on me, old man, Jason says, and is glad to hear a little telltale creakiness in the words. Bruce smiles a little. If you want, he says. I can take you and Tim to the abandoned mall outside the city sometime. There's enough space to do some more interesting tricks. This sounds like the coolest shit ever. but Jason still has some dignity left, so he goes with the casual, "Yeah, alright. Have you had any lessons yet?" "What?" Jason frowns for a minute, trying to figure out what the hell that means. He's in school. Bruce drives him to school every day. Of course he said, "Oh shit, he means driving lessons." "No," Jason says. "Not yet." "We can start then," Bruce says. "If you want." If he wants. Jason almost laughs. "Yeah, alright," he says instead. When they pull into the school parking lot, Bruce says, tone cautious, "I can see about an appointment after school lets out if you want to go to the dermatologist today." Jason nods a little awkwardly. "Today's fine." "Sounds good," Bruce says, looking relieved. He smiles one of his not smiles. "Have a good day, Jason." "Thanks," Jason says. He gets out of the car as quickly as he can, feeling weird, but stops before closing the door to awkwardly add, "You too." "Thank you," Bruce says, smiling again. "I'll see you later." "See you later." And Jason watches him pull away. "What's got you looking so happy?" Steph asks him as she walks up and knocks their shoulders together. Jason shakes himself out of it. "Nothing." "Vitiligo," Jason says. The dermatologist, a surprisingly young woman with a shock of bright pink hair, nods in confirmation. "It's a pigment disorder that causes patches of skin, sometimes hair, to lose color. Looks localized to me, but it's hard to say this early on. There are a couple of treatment methods we can try." Jason nods slowly. "So it's not dangerous?" The doctor smiles at him, but not in a look at this dumbass kind of way, so he doesn't mind. Not at all. Except that the discolored patches are much more sensitive to sunlight, so be careful to apply extra sunscreen. "Okay," Jason says. "Thanks." He tries to remember a time he's ever worn sunscreen at all and fails. It's not like he's ever needed it in Gotham of all places. He can probably count the number of sunny days in the last couple of years on one hand. "No problem, kiddo. Do you want to bring your dad back in to talk about the treatment plans?" "Oh," Jason says. "Yeah, sure." "Okay, I'll go get him. You just sit tight, okay?" Jason nods. "Thanks." He pulls out his phone as soon as she leaves and looks up vitiligo. After scrolling through a handful of extremely varied photos, he scrolls back up and searches for localized vitiligo. But then the doctor's ushering Bruce into the room. Bruce looks a little tense. "Vitiligo," Jason tells him, holding up his phone. "Localized." His shoulders drop a millimeter in relief. Jason ducks his head to hide a smile as he scrolls quickly through the information on Jason's phone, then nods and thanks and passes it back. "So," the doctor says, and starts walking them through treatment options. Jason leaves with a bottle of steroid cream, a leaflet on UV treatments in case it doesn't work, and a warning that vitiligo can be stubborn and treatments might not prove effective. "We can find another doctor for a second opinion," Bruce says as they get in the car. "Thought you said this one was the best." "She is, but we can still seek a second opinion." Jason shrugs. "Might as well see if the cream works first." Honestly, he didn't really care. He's just relieved he doesn't have fucking cancer or something. The car is quiet for a few miles, then Bruce says, "You don't have to decide right away, but have you thought at all about the stress?" "I'm not seeing a fucking shrink." Another moment is silent. Bruce shifts his grip on the steering wheel. "I know the idea can be intimidating, but therapy can be incredibly beneficial." Jason scoffs. "Like you ever gone to therapy?" "I have actually," Bruce says, and Jason's head whips around to look at him. "But this isn't about me. I won't make you go if you don't want to. Just think about it, please?" "Yeah, sure." Jason grumbles, still a little shocked by Bruce's admission, and weak in the face of the way his voice strains a little on the upward lilt of please. "Whatever. I'll think about it. Thank you. Whatever." "There are other ways to relieve stress, you know," Jason says. All sorts of ways." Bruce side-eyes him. "Please don't fight anyone." "What?" Jason blinks at him. "What the? Jesus, Bruce, what the fuck? Why would anyone use fighting as stress relief? Ugh, dumbass rich kids. Probably never been in a fight in his life. Fighting is, like, the most stressful activity. Come on," Jason complains. "Never been more stressed out in my life than in fights." "Have you been in a lot of fights?" Jason shrugs. "Some." Bruce's gaze flicks over to him, then back to the road. "I lost most of them, if that's what you're wondering," Jason says. "I'm sure they weren't fair fights." He's right about that bit, anyway. "I can't see you fighting below your weight class," Bruce adds. Jason narrows his eyes at him. "Are you fishing right now, rich boy?" "Of course not," Bruce says with a slight huff to it. A moment later he adds a little sheepishly, "There's just so much of your life I missed." "Oh my god," Jason laughs. "You are! You're fishing for details on your teenage son's fights." "Real classy, Bruce. Parent of the year." Bruce grunts, rolls his eyes a little, at least in spirit. "Are you gonna tell me or not?" "Yeah, sure," Jason says. "Why not?" He wishes he could tell him about fighting Robin the other night, but that's such a terribly bad idea he almost can't even think it without breaking into a cold sweat. So he tells him about the bully he broke the nose of in the 2nd grade, and then got the snot kicked out of him. But hey, the kid was 12. He starts in on the story of him stopping a mugging when he was 13 after that, but only gets about halfway through. It was going pretty well, he says, but then the fucker hit me right over the ribs. My dad, he cut himself off abruptly. Bruce is silent in the driver's seat. Jason doesn't dare look over. Sorry, Jason says after a minute. There's a pause then. What for? Jason braves a quick glance to his left, but it doesn't yield any useful information. Bruce's face is doing that blink stone thing. He wasn't my dad, Jason says quietly. Not biologically, no. Bruce glances over at him. But you can still call him that if you want. It doesn't... He raised you. Jason scoffs. Well or not is a different question, Bruce clarifies. There's quiet for a minute again. Then Jason blurts out, he was a shit dad. Yeah? I mean, he was fine when I was really little, I think. What happened? Jason shakes his head. He honestly doesn't know. He got locked up, he settles on eventually. He was different when he came back. I don't know why. Saw some shit, I guess. Messed him up. I'm sorry. Crossing his arms over his chest, Jason shrugs. It's whatever. He was only out for a couple years, and then when he went back, he got fucking shanked, so... Doesn't matter anymore, does it? The past always matters. Bruce, when Jason looks over, is staring straight ahead, eyes fixed on the road, no matter how much we might wish it doesn't. Jason watches that blank expression of his for a minute, then turns back and looks out the windshield. Yeah, he says. I guess it does. They drive in silence for a minute or two before Jason breaks it again. He almost killed me once, when I was a kid, he says, voice pitched low, but loud in his own ears anyway. He'd never told anyone that before. He was drunk, and I said something stupid. I don't remember what, and he just lost it. Took off his belt and, wasn't that bad really, but I was only 10 and he'd never hit me with that buckle before. He also kicked a couple times. Broke one of my ribs so bad. Never healed right. Bruce pulls over, turns in the seat back to the window. Jason, he says, I'm so sorry. Jason shrugs. It was a long time ago. I know. I'm still sorry. Wasn't your fault. Not like you knew. I'm sorry it happened then. Bruce concedes. Jason fiddles with the string of his hoodie. Thanks, he says quietly. Do you want to get your ribs looked at? Jason shrugs. Doesn't hurt much anymore. It still hurts sometimes though? Yeah. Can we get it looked at? Please. Jason shrugs again, but says, yeah, if you want. Bruce lets out a long breath. Thank you for trusting me enough to. I know it's not easy. What is he supposed to say to that? He has no fucking clue, so he just nods awkwardly. Do you want a hug? Yeah. Yeah, he does. Bruce's arms wrap around him for the 2nd time that day, and Jason closes his eyes and tries to convince himself that this isn't the safest place he's ever felt in his entire life, because that would just be pathetic. He pulls away after a few seconds, but lets Bruce's hand linger heavily on his shoulder for a moment longer, arms stretched across the center console. Bruce squeezes once, then lets go and puts the car back in gear. When they get back to the manor, Jason heads straight for the kitchen, hungry for his usual after-school snack, now hours late. Ah, there you are, Alfred says, standing in front of the flour-dusted counter, rolling out a big lump of pale dough. I was beginning to wonder if Mr. Bruce had gotten lost. Nah, Jason says. Just took a little longer than we thought. What you making? Smells great. Alfred smiles. Shortbread, my dear boy. There's a charity bake sale at Gotham Academy tomorrow. Would you like to help? God, would he? I don't really know how to bake, Jason warns, already edging closer. There's no time like the present to learn then. Are your hands clean? Jason shrugs. Ish. Alfred gives him a slightly exasperated look. Wash them, child. Then take this and start rolling. Try to make the whole disc the same thickness. Jason dedicates every ounce of attention he has to the task, carefully adjusting the angle of the rolling pin and the amount of pressure applied until Alfred is satisfied and pulls out the cookie cutters. The cookies make it into the oven with little incident, and Alfred sets him to making the dough for the next batch. These ones, chocolate crinkle. Bruce probably already told you, Jason says after a while, but I'm not sick. It's just a pigment disorder. Pretty much just aesthetic, which sucks, I guess, but there are options for treatments, and I don't mind so much anyway. There are only a couple spots. That is wonderful news, dear boy, Alfred says. Master Bruce had not, in fact, informed me. Jason mixes a little too hard and flings some dough on himself. Why do you call him that anyway? He asks gruffly. Well, I suppose I got in the habit when he was a boy, and it just stuck. Jason frowns. You called him Master even when he was a little kid? Oh, Alfred says, genuinely surprised. And Jason turns around to see the slightly stunned look on his face. Forgive me. I forget that it's not so much the norm these days in most circles. Master is the title used traditionally for young boys, under the age of 14, I believe. Jason stares at him. So, he says slowly, you're saying you call him a child? To his face? Every day? Alfred says. Yes, I suppose. A snort of laughter bursts out of Jason's mouth, catching him a little off guard. Alfred graces him with a small smile. Dick too, Jason realizes aloud. Yes, well, Alfred says, huffing a little. All of you are children to one as old as I. Jason scoffs at the dramatics. You're not that old. Alfred smiles again, then turns back to his batch of dough. After a minute, Jason says cautiously, so, it's like an affectionate thing, right? Quite improperly affectionate, yes, Alfred agrees. Oh, I guess I don't mind then, he says quietly. Just so, Master Jason, Alfred says, and Jason can hear the smile. The next day at school, Steph greets him with, hey, so don't freak out. Which, of course, makes him immediately freak the fuck out. Internally, of course. Externally, he takes the textbook he needs out of his locker like nothing is wrong and says, freak out about what? Leaning against the locker next to his, Steph squints at him like she's trying to read his mind or something. Nervous and annoyed in equal measure, Jason loses patience quickly. Just tell me what the fuck happened already. Jeez, alright. Steph rolls her eyes. Impatient much? Jason glares at her. She relents. I ran into a mutual friend of ours last night. He said to tell you it's rude to throw people's stuff off buildings. Robin. Shit. Jason's heart pounds faster in his chest. Steph tells him to calm down. He isn't mad. Seemed a little impressed, honestly. Sure. Impressed. As if Jason wouldn't be a smear on the pavement if Robin had actually wanted to hurt him. He know anything he shouldn't? Steph shook her head. At least, not as far as I could tell. Seemed very curious, and politely concerned. Left you a present. A present? It's at my place. I can show you later. Yeah, probably makes sense not to bring anything potentially incriminating onto school property. Good thinking, Steph. Did he ask you for my name? Yeah, she says. Told him I didn't know it. Pretty sure he believed me. Well, that's a relief. The bell ringing for first period puts an end to the discussion, but Jason texts Bruce on his way to class to ask if he can hang out at Steph's after school. He says yes, of course, because he's Bruce. God. Jason doesn't know if he'll ever get used to that. After last bell, and a quick stop by the math tutoring room for a last-minute question before the quiz the next morning, Jason meets up with Steph on the front steps, and they head to her place together. Surprisingly, her mom's still there when they walk in, unloading the dishwasher. With the hour she works at the hospital, Jason hasn't seen her much since the funeral. It's not like he goes over to Steph's in the middle of the day very often, after all. Jason, she says as soon as they step into the apartment. How are you doing? I'm doing okay, Miss Brown. Jason responds, kicking his shoes off by the door. Thanks for asking. How are you? The woman smiles at her like he hung the moon. Please, Jason, call me Crystal. Jason nods in a slightly awkward agreement as she finishes unloading the dishwasher. How's the new living situation? Anything I can do to help? It's good, Jason says honestly. I mean, it's an adjustment for sure, but... He shrugs. They're good people. I'm glad. Standing in front of him now, Crystal gives him a visual once-over, then proclaims, well, they're doing alright feeding you anyway. I swear you're an inch taller than last time I saw you. Jason highly doubts that's true, but he doesn't mind the sentiment, so he smiles. Thanks. Crystal smiles back and pulls him into a quick hug. I've got to run or I'll be late for my shift, but it's so good to see you. Let me know if there's anything you need, okay? Jason promises he will, accepts another hug as Steph complains that she's being embarrassed. Listens as Crystal tells them to have fun and be safe, then she's out the door. Sorry, Steph says in the suddenly quiet apartment. She can be a lot. I don't mind, Jason says, staring at the door she just closed behind her. It's a weird thing to do, probably. Stephanie, he can tell, is watching him closely, but she doesn't bring it up. You okay? She says instead. Yeah, all good. It's quite enough that he doesn't know whether he meant to say it to Steph or to himself. He thinks, seemingly out of nowhere, that he's glad Crystal Brown looks nothing like his mother. Immediately after that, he decides he needs to stop thinking altogether. The present? He says, brusquer than he means to be. Steph doesn't hassle him about it, because she is a good person who doesn't fucking deserve to feel guilty about the world giving her a win for once. So he needs to get his shit together. In her bedroom, Steph pulls the box holding both their costumes out from her closet and unlocks it. What's sitting on top of the purple and red fabric is interesting enough to actually get his mind off the whole "don't be jealous of Steph for having a living mother, you absolute asshole" thing. Whoa, he says, reaching out to touch the dark gray material. The fuck is this even made of? No idea, Steph says, rocking back on her heels. But he gave me one a while back, too. Said it'll stop anything short of a military grade. Jesus. The armor, when he lifts it out of the box, feels way too light to stop anything more than a punch than a BB gun, but hey, if Robin says so, who's Jason to disagree? Try it on, Steph suggests, and Jason immediately strips down his t-shirt under the hoodie he's wearing and starts working on getting the thing on. It takes both of them to figure out how to get all the buckles and clasps latched and in the right places, but some undignified wiggling and a little sweat later, he's got it on. This thing feels like a glove, which is a little concerning because it probably means Robin analyzed footage of their fight to get his measurements, but damn, he looks good. Here, come on, Steph says excited and passes him the rest of the costume, which is now a strange hodgepodge of pieces old and new. Along with the short sleeve piece of body armor, Robin had given him a utility belt like fucking Batman's, a respirator that Steph said was supposed to be able to filter out any of the usual suspects' airborne nightmares, and antidotes to said nightmares and high-tech EpiPen-looking things. And well, a pack of custom boxer briefs with a spot to insert a cup, as well as said cup. It also fit perfectly, a fact Jason elects to not think about. Regardless, the armor, belt, and respirator combined with his original getup, he looks cool as fuck. Fiddling with the respirator reveals a voice modulator mode that Steph insists makes him sound ridiculous, but Jason thinks it's cool. Steph makes him recite Darth Vader quotes when a thought hits him like a truck. He takes the respirator off midline and stares at it. He says, voice a little higher than normal. How do we know he didn't put, surveillance shit in this stuff? Steph shrugs. He said he didn't. And she just believed him? His disbelief must be apparent because Steph crosses her arms and says, I'm not stupid, okay? There's no surveillance. How the fuck do you know that? Jason asks. He could... Hey, Steph says firmly. Jason, breathe. The gear's clean. He doesn't know who you are. Her surety makes him feel a little better, but not much. How do you... A little reluctant, she admits. I guilt-tripped him about it, okay? Jason stares at him. After a minute, he says, what does that even mean? Well, Steph says, drawing out the word and squirming a little. Steph, I told him he scared the shit out of you. Jason scowls and opens his mouth to argue, but, well, it's not true. I also might have implied that I thought you were homeless. What? And very skittish, like a stray kitten. Okay, come. And I told him he had a panic attack after your run-in the other night. Jason frowns. I didn't have the seriously, man, look Steph levels him with shuts him up pretty quickly. He feels really bad, I think, she says. Well, he should. Little shit. And to double check, I had him call Oracle up for me. Oracle? She's like their tech support / wizard / coordinator. Honestly, I'm not sure. But she's awesome, and she doesn't put up with Robin shit. Probably not Batman's either. She agreed it was a bad idea to push for your identity if it was just going to spook you. And she made Robin take out the bugs, and showed me how to scan for them myself to make sure. Okay, Jason takes a deep breath. Realistically, the ship's already sailed anyway. They've been messing around with the gear for the better part of an hour or so. No use worrying. He thought that might make him feel better, but it doesn't really. Whatever. He swallows hard, trying to will away the nausea and nods. Okay. Steph pats him on the back. Cheer up, bud. You're bulletproof now. That does not make him feel better. Oh, also, we should probably go back to the drawing board on the name thing. Turns out Red Hood is an old alias of the Joker's. What? For the first time in years, if not his whole life, Jason finishes his math quiz early and turns it in feeling like he actually understood everything on it. While the rest of the class finishes up, he sits at his desk and tries to think of any vigilante name. It's a waste of time, really. He's not going to need it. He doesn't have time to do the whole vigilante thing. He doesn't. He keeps thinking about names anyway. All of the stuff from Robin is gray or black, so he doesn't have to keep the red if he doesn't want to. Not that he doesn't like the red, but maybe it's a little flashy. Darker colors might be better. He doodles a little in the margins of his math note on his tablet, and somehow keeps coming back to black, which is lame and also taken. But Batman's all matte and shadow. Jason thinks a little bit more oil slick. He's itching to talk to Steph about it, but they agreed they shouldn't talk about any nocturnal activities, and she's got a shift at Batburger right after school, so I won't see her until tomorrow. Ugh. Bruce texts him before his last class to ask if he minds if Dick, who's apparently in Gotham, picks him up instead. He minds. He's not a fucking baby, so he sends back a response that hopefully makes it sound like he's not being fucking neurotic about it. But it's Bruce whose car pulls up to the pickup area after school. Hey, Jason says, climbing into the car. I thought you were busy. Bruce just shrugs. How was school? Jason launches into a summary of the day, relaxing into the familiar route. Bruce chimes in at the appropriate times with quiet noises of agreement or amusement, asking a few clarifying questions. When he's done, he says, So Dick's here? Bruce nods. He's off work until Sunday. Jason's not sure how to feel about that. On one hand, he and Dick left off on better terms than Jason would have imagined possible when they first met. On the other hand, he hasn't seen the older boy in weeks. Dick had texted him a couple dumb memes and a video of a puppy seeing itself in the mirror for the first time, but Jason never responded to any of them, not really knowing what to say. You don't have to. Bruce cuts himself off awkwardly, shifting his hands on the steering wheel and tries again. There's no pressure. He glances over at Jason for a second, looking a little nervous. Dick will understand if you need space. or time, or just tell someone if you're comfortable, alright? I don't mind hanging out with Dick, Jason objects, and it's true. He shifts a little in his seat, embarrassed. Bruce waits him out with that quiet patience of his. I like when you pick me up, Jason mutters eventually, sinking deeper into his hoodie. Oh, Bruce says, so quiet it's more of a breath than a word. Jason wants to crawl into a hole and die. I like when Bruce starts stilted. I pick you up, too. He's so goddamn awkward. Jesus Christ. Bruce clears his throat, opens his mouth, closes it again. The poor guy looks about 2 seconds from breaking into tears. Can we talk about something else? Jason covers his face with his hands. Jesus. There's a moment of silence, then Bruce says, all right. I know it's only been a few days since we talked about it, but I prepared a list of vetted therapists for you to choose from, if that's something you want to look at. Strained voice muffled by his hands, Jason says, why would you think that's a less stressful topic? Therapy doesn't have to be a stressful topic. Jason scoffs. I started going after Tim. Bruce cuts himself off. Slowly raising his head, Jason looks over at Bruce. After Tim what? Tim should tell you that. Just during Tim's adoption, we all had to see someone for a little while, and I realized how much help I really needed. I've been going regularly for the last few years now. Jason squints at him, still struggling a little to understand. You really see a therapist? Nodding, Bruce says. Every week? Jesus. Jason scrubs a hand through his hair. He can't imagine Willis. But that's not fair. Bruce isn't Willis. He's not anything like Willis. And it's helped? Jason ventures. Immeasurably. Bruce glances over at him for a second, a little nervous. Before I started, Dick and I, we weren't... He stops, starts over. Dick wasn't speaking to me before I started. Oh. I was overprotective, controlling. I was terrified of losing him like I lost my parents, and I didn't handle it well. Bruce shakes his head. We fought a lot, and then I adopted Tim. Well, I didn't think through how that would affect Dick, how he would see it. What, you adopting another kid? Bruce winces. I hadn't adopted Dick. He was my ward, officially. I didn't want him to think I was replacing his father. I should have done a lot of things differently. I made a lot of mistakes. I'm just lucky he was willing to forgive them. Wow, Jason didn't know how to feel about that. About the therapy, Bruce says as they pull up to the manor. Take as long as you need to decide, okay? Just keep thinking about it. Jason just grunts in response, not knowing what to say. He probably has a lot of stuff he should talk to a therapist about. Yeah? The whole feeling like he's dying thing, that's probably not normal. Fuck, he doesn't want to, though. The idea of talking about Willis or his mom or anything with a stranger is... He doesn't want to think about it, so he decides not to. As they pull into the garage, though, he has another thought that's nearly as anxiety-inducing. You didn't tell Dick I didn't want him to pick me up, right? Bruce shakes his head. No, of course not. Oh, thank God. He's still a little nervous when he walks into the kitchen, but then Dick's leaning back on a stool he's sitting on and grinning, yelling Jason's name and greeting, mouthful of Alfred's cucumber sandwiches, and everything's alright. Hey, so, Dick says after demolishing Jason and around a Mario Kart. This is kind of out of the blue, and you can just ignore me if you want. But if you want to change your name, Bruce would support that. Jason stares at him. Change my name? Dick keeps looking at the TV. Yeah, you know, Todd Wayne, Wayne Todd, whatever you want, man. Well, shit. Wait, are you... Grayson Wayne legally? Dick shrugs. I use both, or either, informally. Depends. Huh. It was just Grayson for a long time. Dick continues. Bruce didn't offer, so I thought he didn't want me to have his name. But he was just being dumb. I thought it would be presumptuous or something, I don't know. Anyway, no pressure. Just know you've got options if you don't want to stick with Todd. Jason swallows. I don't know how I feel about hyphens. Well, Tim just went with Wayne, so that's an option if you want. Oh, okay. Jason says after a minute. Can we go back to Mario Kart now? Dick laughs. Of course. Ready to lose? Wait! Tim yells, getting around the corner. Can Bart and I play? Who the hell is... A kid with a crazy mop of red hair slams into Tim from behind, sending both of them sprawling onto the floor. The kid, Bart, presumably, pops up to his feet faster than Tim and calls out, Hey, Dick. Hey, Bart, how's Central? Oh, you know, hanging in there. Hey, you must be Jason. That's me, Jason says, a little thrown by how fast the kid's talking. Fucking Midwesterners. Crash! Tim and Con have told me so much about you. I mean, it isn't every day your friend gets a surprise brother, am I right? How are you doing? Tim said you're... Bart, Tim says finally, on 2 feet again. Slow down. Right. Bart rubs the back of his neck, looking a little sheepish. Sorry. Mario Kart? Yeah, hold on. Let me find the extra controllers, Dick says, getting up to rummage around in a basket under the TV. You live in Central? Jason asks, curious. That's right. Where the hell? Dick is muttering. Tim says, Oh, I think they're in my room, actually. I'll be right back. How did you and Tim become friends, then? Jason asks. Oh, Bart's my friend Wally's little cousin, Dick cuts in. Oh, Jason says. Bart's laugh sounds a little forced. Yeah, we met through them. Kinda lame, I know. Nah, Jason says. That's cool. Perks of having family friends, yeah? Yeah, I found them, Tim yells from the hall. A minute later, he's plopped onto the couch next to Jason, controller in hand. Crash, Bart says, sounding a little relieved. Weird kid. Also, what the fuck is crash supposed to mean? Bart stays for dinner, talking a mile a minute about various relations and friends that apparently everyone else knows, but Jason can't keep straight for the life of him. He also can't figure out how the Waynes are this close with some random family from Central of all places. Maybe through Lois and Clark? He's pretty sure the kid mentioned a reporter somewhere in there. His grandma? Honestly, he has no clue. Bart talks so fast Tim has to elbow him every once in a while to get him to slow down to something normal people can understand. Jason doesn't mind. He seems like a good kid. After Tim and Bart excuse themselves, though, he asks Bruce, Hey, can we talk? He hasn't been able to think about anything else for hours. Of course, he says immediately. In the study? Calling his home office a study is one of Bruce's worst traits, honestly. It makes Jason cringe internally every time the guy says it. But yeah, in the study. Once they're up, Jason says, So I was talking to Dick. And then he chickens out. Bruce is waiting, calm and quiet and practically radiating non-threatening. Jason changes the subject. I thought about what you said today about the, yeah, but also about Willis and the x-rays and stuff. Bruce just hums encouragingly. I haven't decided yet about the therapy. That's alright, Bruce says. I'm glad you're taking time to think it over. Yeah, right. Did you make an appointment already to get a scan or whatever? Nodding slowly, Bruce says, Yes, I put it in your calendar. It's not for another couple weeks, though. Okay, Jason says. Okay. Jesus, stop fucking stalling. Whatever it is, Bruce says, we don't have to talk about it. Jason scrubs a hand through his hair, growling a little. He wants to talk about it. He just, quietly, Bruce says, Do you want a hug? Jason stares at him for a moment, then nods. Yeah, he wants a fucking hug. Arms wrap around him, and Jason lets his head settle onto Bruce's shoulder, exhaling shakily. After a few minutes, he says into Bruce's sweater, Dick says I can be a Wayne, if I want. There's a moment where Bruce goes perfectly still, and the whole world stops with him, Jason's lungs included, and then Bruce says, You already are a Wayne, but if this is about the name, I'd be honored if you want it. Just say the word. And Jason closes his eyes, buries his face a little deeper in Bruce's sweater. You sure? He asks. I'll probably bring shame upon the family or something. Bruce shakes his head. Impossible. I've already done that too thoroughly. Oh yeah? Oh yeah. Do me a favor and never put Bruce Wayne and tabloid in the same Google search. Laughing a little, Jason pulls away. Alright then. Should I start the paperwork? Yeah, Jason says. Yeah, go ahead. Jason Peter Todd Wayne. Jason shakes his head. If his mother had used her maiden name, whatever the hell it even is, or if he'd had any connection to her family, maybe he would have chosen to include her somehow. But Todd? Maybe things have been different. Willis could have been a good dad, but Jason carries Willis with him every day. He remembers him every time he flinches away from the sound of breaking glass, every time he smells cheap beer and his heart starts pounding, every time he gets backed into a corner and turns into a wild animal, every time a grown man raises his voice or moves too fast or tries to loom over him. Yeah, he doesn't need any more reminders. Just Wayne, he says. Jason Peter Wayne. Alright, Bruce says softly, smiling his not smile. Just Wayne. Alright guys, and that is the end of chapter 5 of This Kind of Weather by R_Astra. I hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you next chapter.